Hello everybody and welcome to another, I know you've been looking forward to it, Game Guru Max live broadcast number 59 or 60 or 61. Pick one of those if you like, or check out our YouTube channel where we have all of our broadcasts in consecutive order. So this is the Now broadcast. And this week I've got something pretty cool to show you. I know you've been asking for it for months. I think it feels like months, certainly. It is the grand reveal, but before I grandly reveal, I want to grandly make sure that everyone can hear me before I do the grand reveal thing. We can hear you, thanks very much Kenzu. I can now continue to talk. What is the grand reveal, I hear you ask? It is the revelation of the letter P. Remember, those who join in regular to our broadcasts will know I was hinting at something I was working on in the background of what P meant, and I didn't confirm it. In fact, I absolutely wanted to save it up for this very moment. P stands for procedural. That's right, procedural. And there ain't no coincidence that it's also the very broadcast where I reveal the new terrain system, because our new terrain system uses procedural generation in order to create vast landscapes. We weren't content with a small rectangle on which you place your sculpted terrain. We wanted a huge terrain, one where you could wander off for miles. So that's what we've done. And this broadcast is indeed the reveal of the new terrain system. Now, just right at the beginning, I want to say this is just a draft version. It is not by any means finished. We've not finished perfecting the themes. We've not added any trees. There's no grass. The water still needs to be improved. We need to generate point clouds for small things like rocks and other asset features that are randomly, nay procedurally, generated around your landscape. So look upon this as a first release, a first thing that you get your hands on and can play with. So if you're a pre-order user, you'll be able on Friday to be able to play with the new terrain system. So I'm not going to mill about anymore. I'm going to go straight in, run the software and show you what I've got. I also must say I am slightly off script in the sense that I've been coding and compiling and integrating up to about 10 minutes before this broadcast. So if something goes awry, please forgive me, it wasn't deliberate. So the first thing I want to show you, which goes straight in, is the terrain. As you can see, we've got mountains as far as the eye can see. You've not had to sculpt anything. All I did was just load up the Max software, jump straight into test level, and you get this. In a future version, you'll be able to create your level and then generate the terrain of your choice, and then you get dropped into your level to edit or test level. But this is alpha build, so we've just gone straight to the bit where it auto-generates some terrain for you, so you can jump straight in and play it. Now, I'm still working on the physics, so I'm not going to be running around the terrain today. I'm pretty happy with my progress, but I really want to get it right and get the little undulations being respected by the physics before I show you all of that. One thing I did want to show you, by popular request, is the water. You might think that water's not too realistic. Well, we've been playing around with it. And if we do something like that, that's a little bit more realistic for the colour of water. But as you can see, you can change the colour of water to pretty much anything you want. I was thinking of showing you my new physics button, but I'm not going to show you that. Maybe I'll show you something about it next week. You'll certainly be able to tick that button on Friday as part of the Friday build if you were interested in seeing a wireframe representation of every piece of physics in your game level. But that's just one example of terrain. What I want to show you now is the UI that you can use to generate all the different kinds of procedural. So as you see, this is a new screen. You've not seen this one before. This is the Terrain Generator UI. Divided, as you might imagine, into a large area on the left, which is your 3D representation of everything, and on the right is the area where you can edit your properties. So you can see terrain themes at the top. You've got jungle, so we can select them. This is the jungle one. We can select a desert, select a forest, Arctic, you've got canyon, We're still playing with mountains. You've got rainforest and empty, which is currently a big flat green area, which you're probably used to, but we're going to change this to a nice grid. So it's as if, let's say you only want to do indoor levels. You would not want a terrain, so you just select empty, you've got a grid, and then you can just place your corridors and rooms. You don't have to worry too much about the outside world. So let me pick one, let's say desert. I like desert. Zoom in a little bit. So there's our desert stretching off. And you'll also notice here, this is a mini-map. That allows you to very quickly move around the terrain to find a piece that you want. I'll maybe show you a little bit about that later. And you've also got other properties, so I can hide and show the map. I can show 3D bones, that's the 3D bones of the area, or I can hide that, which indicates what we call the editable area. Naturally, you won't want to be editing miles and miles and miles and miles and miles, so we've given you an option to select the area that you want to edit within. The smaller you can make it for the purposes of generating your level, the smaller that level file will be. So it's in your interest to make that only the area that you're interested in editing, but this is massive. I think it's, at maximum, it's about 5 kilometers. So I don't think you need much more than that to edit in. And if I just increase the mountain heights, you can actually see what I'm talking about. So it defaulted to something rather flat, but then I can change the mountains so they're really high or low. I'm going to have a few, like I said, we're still tweaking all the themes. These are quite spiky. We're going to have some extra options, which you can have like more of a sand dune effect going on. If I go and switch to, I think, Canyon, you can see the themes also have built-in profiles for what a canyon might be, so it's instantaneously figured out, well, I'm going to make the cliffs more vertical, I'm going to put in some interesting things like this. And so again, you can still change the heights if you want, so I can make them higher or lower. You've also got water height. You can flood the valley if you want, or we can dry up the riverbed, but I'll put a little bit in there because I think that's quite nice. So as you can see, by choosing the different themes, I've actually come out a little bit, so you can see this little line. That line actually is your edit area, but look, you can change the map size, so I can have it much bigger. I want all this, or I just want to focus my game on top of a mountain. And for that, I could say, well, I'm just going to move over to, say, this mountain here. Ding. So now my game is entirely focused on the top of this mountain. And as I said, this is the first draft of it. When you get to play with this, then you'll also have your painting, your sculpting, your adding vegetation. But the cool thing about the Terrain Generator UI is it will also take care of populating grasses and trees and rocks and all the rest of it. So this, at the moment, they're all really nice textures. We've made sure that the textures are good and all consistent across all the lighting models. But what you'll have is the point cloud system will generate additional little rocks here, there and everywhere. If you go down to the valley, down to the bottom, then the point cloud system will figure out, well, you might want some grasses on here, or maybe some underwater vegetation. Or if it's more like a plain, like a forest plain like this, it would populate it with hundreds of thousands of trees as far as the eye can see. So imagine this is sort of the base, the foundation, and then we build all the extra stuff. And the generator, the terrain generator, will show you all that at the same time. And when you're happy with what you've selected, so let's do that one, or maybe I want, yeah, something like this. Then you can select generate terrain, and that will then become your level. You can save and load your settings. There's also advanced options and developer mode options. So these are just the ones that we think everyone will use. Change the height of the mountain, change the water level. But you can also change how the procedural system works, the different fractals and stuff. So if I select that one, just for kicks and giggles, you notice it's actually switched the atmospheric scattering back on. So when you're flying in the sky in the terrain generator, you don't want it, but you do want it for things like this. So now you've actually got the atmospheric scattering on, and the water is something we're working on, but you can see the water's pretty cool. You can change the colour, like I said, it's got the ripples and all the rest of it. And so we will choose all the standard user stuff for the different themes, but in developer mode, you get to choose literally everything that we have control of to regenerate the procedural data in different ways. and it's pretty vast, the kind of things you can do with just a few values to completely change the terrain makeup. So on Friday you will get this. You'll be able to generate all the different themes from the new level option, and also you'll be able to click test game and you'll be able to run around on the terrain. You'll be able to place objects on the terrain as well. If I just show you a barrel, just to show you that you can place a barrel down so you can see the scale of the thing. There's the barrel. But then you'll also be able to place, say, platforms or other things or buildings, and then start populating and then run around. I'm doing a little bit of AI as well, but I really wanted to focus on terrain this time. But there are also going to be some improvements to the AI, certainly some fixes that were reported from last Friday's build. So you'll not only be able to drop in barrels and platforms and buildings, you'll also be able to populate those buildings with some characters, and the characters will run around and behave themselves. But when you look out the window of that building, you'll actually see a wonderful horizon of mountains or wherever it is you want your terrain to be. And unlike the olden days where this was just a skybox, that's actually real mountain with all the correct LOD. Some little technical things you might want to know. This is a full virtual texturing system, so it calculates all these different texture layers on the fly, caches them, and then renders them extremely quickly. And we can have up to, I think it's either 28 or 32 different material types that you'll eventually be able to paint down. But the procedural system gives you a head start. It calculates the correct places for the most appropriate textures, but then you can go in and paint anything you want down here with a large selection of materials, and all the materials are correctly created so they light the same and they have the same sort of the normals, and the surface attributes are all correct for those particular materials. So I hope you like the grand reveal of a terrain system. I'm pretty happy with it. Like I said, it's a first draft and we're going to continue to play around with the themes. And you can imagine once we start populating it with other objects and eventually things like critters and animals and stuff, you'll just be able to press a button and you get instantaneous terrain. Maybe that's it. You've done your maybe you never need to sculpt. You just generate the terrain that you want and then drop down some characters and you've got an instant game. But that we'll leave that up to you. So now I'm going to look for questions. I'm checking out the clock. I have done considerably okay to keep within the 15 minutes of gab. I will use more than 1 minute that's left for questions because I think you'll have a few questions for me. And I'll scroll to the top. I'll look for question marks. It's a nice quick way of finding a question. Good afternoon. Everyone can hear me. Wonderful. Thanks very much. First question mark is, when are you going to make video again? That's for somebody else. It's not my question, so I really can't answer it. Can we have a P, please? That's a reference to a popular game show in the UK. Can we have a P, please, Bob? Looking for a question. Who's got a question? Somebody must have me a question. Here we go. When we will get moving grass and trees? Well, as I said, we're going to finish the different terrain themes and make sure the terrain generator UI feels complete and solid, and clicking a few buttons creates the terrain that you would want. Then we'll move on to those technologies, because there are some technical hurdles to do about how do you generate 1 million trees without slowing down your performance. Same with grass. How do you get grass for full coverage, looking good all the way to the distance without affecting performance? So those are the next things, but we're not leaving terrain and terrain themes until we're completely happy with it. That and the sky and the water, and then we'll move on to grass and trees. But we're going to put the same energy and effort into making sure we've got great trees and great grass and great point cloud objects as we have done with the terrain system. And hopefully you can see why it took us so long to release it. We wanted to get it right before we did a reveal. Looking for another question. I'm sure there must be another question. There's a lot of commentary, which I guess what's the live chat's about, having a good chat. I'm looking foam there. I don't really know what that means as a question, but we are looking at the possibility of adding foam to the edges of water when they've got waves going on and it laps up against the shore. We are looking at that technique. Maybe that was the answer you're looking for? Not at all sure on that one. Looking for another question. Lighting looks really good. Thank you very much. And you can change all the lighting. That's just a particular time of day. You can move it to daytime, nighttime, morning, sunset. And all of the textures and all of the light and the atmospheric scattering all change as a result. Would I like to show you? Absolutely. But if I mess it up, it wouldn't make a good broadcast. So maybe we'll show that in the weeks to come as we start perfecting the different terrain themes and finding some great hero shots when we set different times of day and looking towards the sun as it sets. Any more questions for little old Lee? Here we go. This is from Retro Game Block. Can you paint on the map manually as well? Not at the moment, but absolutely you will be able to do it. It's part of the terrain system that you can sculpt, paint, and add vegetation. That will be the three things you'll be able to manually do over the top of the procedural system. But the great thing is the procedural system literally just goes on, I wouldn't say forever, but you'd never get to the end of it. It goes on and on and on and on, and the editable area is the bit that you can affect. So within those 5 kilometers, for example, you can sculpt and paint and add veg to your heart's content. But then if the user leaves the editable area, then they get to explore the wilderness. You know, the not affected by humans part of the terrain that you've selected for your game level. Looking for a question mark, and I have to kind of scroll quite a bit to find the next one. Here's one from Stormy. Will the terrain take into account the scale? Yeah, well, it already does. If you stand 65 units above the terrain, the textures are correct for that scale, and all the objects that you can select from the object library when you drop them in are also to scale. Everything out of the box that we provide with Max will all be to scale, so there's no worry about that. You won't have a terrain material that looks too blurry or too sparkly. They'll all be correct for the unit scale of all the objects in the software. Looking for another one. Retro asks another one. Will we have spline type tool for paths? There are no paths. I mean, there's paint, so you can paint your path. I suppose you mean, is there a spline paint where you could sort of say start, end, modify some control points and have some sort of a perfect curve running through your terrain? There are no plans for that. You'll just have to be very, very careful when drawing out your path. And I think using a spline to generate a path might look a little bit artificial. I can see it would make sense if, say, you're doing roads, which would have that sort of very mathematical curve. But I also see roads being much more than just painting on the terrain. I think roads might be some sort of entity overlay, because you want things like pavements and little details on the edges of the road. So I think that's another conversation. But certainly you would want to start adding stuff like that to your terrain at some point. I just think it's a separate conversation and not what I'm demonstrating, at least today, or what's anticipated for the near future. Question mark, 18 question marks. When is GG Max out? November? End of November. I can actually say that now. A couple of weeks ago I couldn't have said that. But now I can say you will get your early access version at the end of November this year. Here's a question from Earl of Cloves. Option for generating terrain using GIS image. We have no plan to support GIS image, unfortunately. Don't even know what GIS image is, which is why I'm pretty sure we're not supporting it for the end of November. But please do post in the forums later on, and maybe a link and maybe some third-party tools that generate it, and we'll certainly check it out. We do have some ideas to import some stuff down the road, but for now we're going to do it all within the Game Guru Max software itself. Here's a question from Asset Junkie. Will there still be an auto flatten feature for objects in Game Guru Max? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? If you have a big building and you drop it onto the terrain, in Classic it would flatten out the terrain so the building at all points was sitting on the terrain. That involved kind of flattening the terrain. I think that's still a pretty cool feature. You don't want to have to go and pre-flatten and then go off and get your build it and drop it in, but it will be on and offable. You'll be able to switch that feature on and off. But it's already in the engine, just needs to be exposed. Checking out the clock, we're now at the 21-minute mark, and as is my custom, I'm going to pick 2 questions from people who've not asked a question before, and the rest of the questions, I'm not ignoring them, but they will be answered in the Game Guru forum thread that I will create after this, along with a recording of the broadcast. So who's not asked a question yet? Here's one from DJ LS Lee. How long would it take to walk from one side to the other on the largest scaled terrain? What a great question. A long time. 5 kilometres is the current maximum that we've set for editable areas. So ask yourself, let's say he was just walking, how long would it take you to walk 5 kilometres? And we're going to make sure that that speed, that walk speed, matches that real world scale to walk 5 kilometres. So I'm not going to do the math. It depends how fast you walk, I suppose. But that must give you an idea. It's not seconds, it's not minutes. It's probably maybe an hour. I don't know. I'm guessing there. Do a bit of math, maybe Google it. You know, how long does it take for a human to walk 1 kilometre? Maybe 30 minutes. Who knows? And the last question. Daj asks a quick look at the Terraform Terrain Randomize button. Daj, absolutely. Let's see if we go completely off script and see what that looks like. So this is our terrain, and you can pick a theme like desert, forest, jungle. You've already seen that. But if I select Terraform Terrain, it actually randomizes all the different things you might want. So for each theme, you can actually do Terraform, find the one you want. So, oh, I like that one. See? And you can, if you Terraform and then you accidentally skip past and think, oh, I wanted the one before, you do undo redo. So you've actually got full undo and redo within the terrain generator system. One of many cool features that if I try to introduce all of them, we'd be here for 2 hours. But definitely check it out on Friday's build. It is pretty cool, and I'm looking forward to adding some more stuff in the next 2 days to make it a little bit better. Now, I've completely lost my place, but I'm looking for the last question. Who hasn't asked a question before? And the lucky person is Bromon Diction. Will Game Guru Max have better handling, performance and creation with games? I found with Game Guru Classic it was very laggy and slow in the standalone game. We've been optimizing Classic quite a bit over the last 7 years, and it is pretty slick. So it could be actually that your GPU isn't very fast, and with a large level with lots of things in it, it would be laggy and slow no matter how much optimization we did. I only say that because if you've got that old GPU in your computer and you run Game Guru Max, you won't suddenly see a 10-fold increase in speed. That's not how it works. You would have to have a GPU that at least matches Game Guru Max's minimum spec, which currently we've got it in at the GTX 960 area, which is about a 5-year-old decent mid-range GPU graphics card. But that's not set in stone. We may increase it a little bit before then. But generally, in answer to the heart of the question, yeah, we're using a brand new graphics engine called Wicked Engine, which actually multi-threads all the GPU tasks that are performed. So it will be faster on the graphics side, we're optimizing on the physics side, we're also optimizing on the AI side as well. So like for like, Game Guru Max will be faster and more optimized, absolutely. But it all comes down to that GPU you've got in your PC, and there literally is no avoiding that. So I'm scanning through. There's still a lot of juicy questions that I'd love to answer. Unfortunately, I have run out of time now. So definitely check out Game Guru forums. There's a new board called Alpha. Click that. You'll find this recording at the top, along with all the answers to the questions that you've asked today. And if you want to hold on and wait for a live answer from me, I will be broadcasting again next Wednesday at 4 PM GMT, as usual, showing probably a little bit more terrain because we're continuing to work on that, and maybe some AI as well, because I'm looking forward to showing off what I've been doing in the last week. So I'm going to throw in a little bit of AI if I'm allowed to. So until next Wednesday, I hope you enjoyed the grand reveal of the brand new procedural terrain system. Looking forward to showing you more in the weeks to come. And if I haven't already said it, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you all next week. Goodbye.